So what we'd like to do today is to push ahead and begin to identify some things in, I'm looking for this collapsible, well, no matter. Identify where to find and describe how to use settings for VirtualBox and any VM created or used with it. Quite often you'll have a chance to, why is this a learning objective? Quite often you'll have a chance to import or transfer or copy or clone virtual machines from other host environments. And you want to be able to work with settings whether you've created the virtual machine or not. And that's an important aspect of our second module. So as you look at where we're headed in, good afternoon, Kevin, how are you?
Afternoon, Professor Kantav, I'm good.
Glad you could join us. So you can see the screen, right? All right. Where is this? There it is. That's what I'm looking for. All right. So in our first module, it was basically just to get oriented on essentials for VirtualBox and what virtual machines are all about. But in this module, we're going to start working with the maintenance and support, the configuration, custom configurations. So what we want to be able to do is to get under the hood and then get the most out of our virtual machines. So the goal is to identify where to find and describe how to use some of the more important features in VirtualBox. And we'll start with those features and functions that are listed for the activities, right? So you have two assignments coming up, and one of them involves network settings. There's a variety of network settings that are often confusing. There's a variety of shutdown and hibernation, or you'll have a VM that you can't control, and you need to get control of it, or you need to gracefully close it off so that you don't hose your host system. So there are shutdown and hibernate modes that there's about 5 or 6 of them. And you would think it's just, okay, I can hit the pause button and sleep my virtual machine, or I can shut it down. No, there's about 5 or 6 of those, right? So there's all sorts of additional options with virtual machines that you wouldn't have with conventional machines. So we want you to be able to use indicators to determine the status of virtual machine operation and the component functionality. In simple terms, we want you to understand the primary benefit of a snapshot and then how it differs from an image. So you can create a virtual box, and then you can copy that image, all the files that go with that virtual machine, and that would be called the image of virtual machine, and then you can transport that somewhere else. But that's distinctly different than a snapshot. So there's a lot of confusion over, you know, what the primary benefit is and why you would want to do one versus the other. I think the greatest benefit from this module is basically how to tweak and tune and create high performance virtual machines. So it's one thing to build a system that you can use. It's another one that is so impressive, it turns heads. I have a quick story to tell you. I was once at a workshop, a week-long boot camp actually, in the Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina area. And that's home to a lot of technology companies, including Red Hat, which is an enterprise Linux solution. You may have heard of Red Hat Enterprise Linux, RHEL. They are the one flavor of Linux that the US government approves and authorizes for use. And we had a workshop on Linux, and I had a MacBook Pro that I was using. And I tuned the performance settings in that MacBook so that when it was running Windows, and I set it up for dual boot. So you could take the MacBook Pro and bring it up in the Mac OS, or you could bring it up as Windows. And one of the few things that many do not understand is that the best platform, hardware platform to run Windows on is a Mac. So I brought this thing up in Windows exclusively. It wasn't that I was running a virtual machine in Windows. And I had a virtual machine in Linux that I had set up on the Windows, and I had tuned my system for high performance. And I started the virtual machine, and blink, just that fast, it was on screen and it was running. And one of the senior support staff for Red Hat Linux headquarters said, "Oh, you got to start the machine from scratch. You need to power it on from start. We can't use a machine that you had put to sleep." He thought I was just waking up a machine because the response on the screen was that fast. And I said, that wasn't a hibernating virtual machine. That was a straight boot. And he said, "No, that's not possible." And so I did it over again on screen, and I enlarged the window so everybody could see it. And there were audible gasps. And he said, "Hey, if we help you with your the rest of your boot camp, can we get one of those? Because I've never seen anything work that fast." So this is where things start to get interesting and fun. It's one thing to create a virtual machine. It's another thing altogether to get the best out of it. We want you to be able to resolve issues that prevent virtual machine functionality. A lot of times when people try to realize the benefits of a virtual machine, they run into simple problems, and some of them are real head scratchers. And when you get a chance to see how easy it is to resolve those, it's amazingly and stupidly simple. It's just that it's not that intuitive, right? It's not that obvious. We do want you to have a bonus working with export and imports of a virtual machine. As a part of the module solution, if you'd like to log additional credit, if you want to bankroll additional credit so that in finals week, the last week of the semester, a lot of times people are stretched thin, and you'll have opportunities to log additional credit in the next 3 modules. So if you start now and you log additional credit, it's like a bank account. You get to the finals week, and depending on your status, you might not have to take the final. Just finish strong. Any questions about our learning outcomes for this module? Any questions? Can everybody see this?
Yes.
All right, so chapters 5 through 7 of the textbook. Now, I know this seems a little mechanical, but I'd like to call out chapters 5 through 7 so you know what that involves. So, and I'm doing that just as a quick point of reference here. Chapter 5 has to do with virtual machine settings. Now, we've already blitzed through chapter 4. We started working aspects of chapter 4 with our module solution, module 1 solution. You each built a virtual machine at this point, right? Or not?
You're talking about the PG book, or you're talking about the one with the Microsoft?
Microsoft.
Okay, then yeah.
Everybody should have completed the build of the server, right? So you downloaded the server software, and then you had an activation key, a license key, and you had a chance to create a virtual hard disk called Win Server Standard. So you've already got the machine built, right? And there were videos to follow. If you haven't completed this yet, you're going to be lost pretty soon. So you're going to want to go ahead and circle back and take care of this quickly if you haven't done so yet. In our second module, what you're going to do for a solution, I'm sorry, let's go back. For your second module is you're going to work configuration changes and maintenance. You're going to be doing those things that we're practicing and the concepts we review for maintenance and support throughout. So that's the goal. In chapter 6, we're dealing with networking. And have any of you had previously taken CSC 243? Anyone?
Digital communication.
I did.
Yeah.
Digital
communications and networking. If you've already had CSC 243, then you are at an advantage compared to others in the class. So that's just something I would note. If you have not yet had CSC 243, when we get into the networking aspects, if you are unfamiliar with some of those things, you'll notice there's a recommendation for a book called Networking Made Easy, Get Yourself Connected. I have a better recommendation. I think it's all of $2.99. It's a Kindle book. It's on Amazon. And it's very straightforward, very short, and it gives a great overview of what networking is and how it works in case you're unfamiliar with that. Then preferences and additional features, right? So the value added stuff. How many of you knew that Virtualbox will allow you to create a virtual network? So you can basically set up a network of switches and routers and such. You can also create additional you can add extra hardware and configure a virtual machine as a router. So you can set up a whole network with this, and you can set up network systems, configure network systems with this. That's, oh, I'm sorry, with this, yeah, host network manager. So what I'd like to do here is start off by explaining that since we've met last, there have been updates to Virtualbox. So if you haven't fired up your Virtualbox yet, we're on version 6.1.38. And when we started our course, everyone was on 6.1.36. What you'll often find is that when you open up Virtualbox, the automatic update feature that's supposed to be enabled, so it's supposed to check automatically for updates, it doesn't always work. And there are times you have to manually push for those. Have we talked about this before in this class?
I think so. I don't know. I remember you talking about it, but I don't know if it was this class.
Right. Well, in every class where we're using Virtualbox, it's a thing. So, and we're making the rounds. The other thing, the other component of this is remember that you have extensions. You have Virtualbox Extensions. Now, by that I mean you have the actual main software for the management environment, but then we have this thing called the extension pack. And when the main software package is updated, the extension pack also has to be updated. And that's something that often throws people. But that's only part of it. When you update the extension pack, what you're doing is updating the drivers for each of the virtual systems. So I'm going to go ahead and start this. And I'm going to start in detachable mode because I'm using a laptop. We've explained that before previously, haven't we? We've explained the host key and how it's the right control key before. Yes?
We have.
Yeah, we did. Okay, so I'm going to switch into this mode. And so this is, if you are running with a laptop, laptops have a nasty habit of slipping into power save mode. If you're working in the virtual machine environment and you haven't done anything on your laptop desktop, meaning this screen, if you haven't been working on this screen while you're working inside this one, your laptop will often go into a power save mode because it thinks, oh, you haven't done anything. So one of the important things to do for virtual machines when you're running on a laptop is that you want to use the detached mode to start it, as I just showed you, but you also want to adapt the power save features on your laptop. So you can go into like personalize, and well, it used to be in here, but now it's under power. So you go into power and sleep, and you make sure that when it's plugged in, it never goes to sleep. Especially when you're running with virtual machines, you want to plug in your laptop, or it won't finish doing what it's supposed to do. It'll revert into a bad state, right? So I want to get in here and restore my settings. So what do I do to get this back?
Sorry, what are you trying to do?
I'm trying to get to the place where I can control the display and work with it. So this is kind of a review. I used my right control key and the home key to display the menu so I could start getting at my features again, right? So I need to be able to put in Control-Alt-Delete. And so can everyone still see my screen?
Yes.
Now, I just updated. Now you see here.
Does it too.
Yeah, yeah. What this is a prompt whenever a virtual machine is cut off or shut down unexpectedly. What I usually do is I say, you know, power issue, something like that. And I put in a problem ID and I say, okay. And Server 2022 will open this Server Manager console. Can everybody see this?
Yeah.
This is perfect. If you can see what's going on here, it's prompting the very thing I was about to mention. So we updated the extensions to 6.1.38. It says, hey, the guest is currently running the old editions, guest editions. You get guest editions or hardware drivers through the extensions. And when you update the extensions, you have to insert the disk again in order to be able to do this. So I click on this, there's a notice that says, hey, your guest is out of date. In other words, your guest isn't as optimized as it could be. So the remedy for this is to go to the devices menu at the bottom. Can everybody see this devices option here? Can everybody see the devices option now?
Yeah.
Okay, and see where it says insert the guest editions CD?
Uh-huh.
That will trigger an update of the drivers. And notice what happens next. So to recap, I find out that the Virtualbox Manager, the automatic updates don't really work. I prompt a review of the updates to make sure I haven't missed something. And what happened this last week is it told me, oh, there is a new version. So I was not prompted. I missed it. If I hadn't checked manual, I would have been in trouble. Once I updated to the new version, I also had to update the extensions. Once I come into my virtual machines, I am inserting the guest edition CD to trigger the option to run updates on my drivers. Now, in server, this doesn't always happen automatically, but you'll notice there's something down in the system tray here. It says guest editions. So it knows that there's something going on with guest editions. And if I try to right click this or click this, it's not going away, but it's still going to bark at me. It's not going to let me forget this. Once I've inserted my guest edition CD, I can go to this PC and go into the CD tray or DVD tray where the guest editions image is loaded. Is everybody with me? Now, as this is playing out and the drivers are updating, oftentimes Windows itself will say, oh, you also have some updates, right? So I'm going to click the defaults and hit install. I want to make sure all of this is updated. And I want to do this before I run Windows updates inside my virtual machine. So what are we saying? We start with the virtual environment, your hypervisor. This is the interface that allows you to work with the hypervisor. And this is a type 2 hypervisor solution, okay? So we know we have an operating system and other apps in the background. We're not running on bare metal like a type 1 hypervisor. Everybody understands what I'm saying when I tell you this, right? From our first module, we explained all that. Yes, maybe?
Kinda.
Kind of, right?
Kinda.
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
Yes, it's in the module 1 study guide, right? So we start with the hypervisor and run updates to make sure this is smooth, fast, and hot. It's stable, it's bug-free, it's invulnerable, impenetrable. It's not a sitting duck, right? Constant updates is a thing. If you want good results, that's what you have to do. Once you do that, you update the extensions. Once you have the extensions updated, you turn on your machines. Your machines say, oh, you have some guest editions you need to update. That's related to the extensions in the hypervisor environment. You insert the disk, you load that software, okay? Because you can go in here and double click it and run it, or you can go inside here and you can find the version of the guest editions you should be running for your operating system. And when it's finished, it's going to say, okay, now you need to reboot. As soon as you finish rebooting, what's going to happen is that your Windows server inside here, inside this virtual system, is going to say, hey, wait a minute, you have some updates also. So you start with the virtual management environment to update. Then you open each of the virtual machines and run updates. And that's basically the process you follow. You would not want to open a virtual machine, run the updates, and then do the rest. Can anyone guess why that's a bad idea?
Sorry, so again, why you'd want to update the machine last?
Yes. If I tried to do the reverse, let's say I wasn't listening and I wasn't paying attention, and I went to update the inside part of the virtual machine first before I did the rest, what do you think would happen if the operating system in here updated without taking care of these updates out here?
I think some defenses, some security measures might be missing.
Well,
I don't want to say security, but like certain packets.
yes, some of the data from inside here would not be complete because it does not, the update in here does not account for the latest version out here. Okay, that's another way to think about it. So if you update in here first, you're taking care of this environment, but this environment is dependent on what? Everything that goes on out here. So if you do this first, it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to put the wax on the car so it looks nice, and then I'm going to wash it. Does that make any sense? Would you want to wash the car after you go to the trouble of buffing it and waxing it? Well, you'd want to wash it just to keep it looking nice, but let's say you never washed it in the first place. Would you get as good a result? There's a dependency and a preferred order. That's the main point. I'm trying to use different analogies to get it across, but have any of you ever done paint jobs, worked with paint before?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever painted over something where you didn't scrape the old paint off and clean the surface first?
Yeah, got some issues there.
Yeah, it doesn't work as well, right?
No.
Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. So when you're looking at maintenance, one of the things I'd like you to understand intuitively is this is your foundation. The hypervisor management, the virtual machine management environment is where you begin. And then you do the extensions, and then you get inside here. And then once you're inside here, you do the guest edition CD. And now, once you have the guest edition CD, now you can run the Windows Server updates. And that's going to function with much greater reliability. Now, in my network, any questions about the standard and the process to follow when you're updating? Pretty straightforward. So we took care of performing updates. Now, changing the NIC settings. What do we mean by NIC? What do those initials stand for? Anyone know?
I was gonna say network interface, but I don't know what
Yes.
C is. But C, I forgot what the C would be. I think it's
card. Network interface card. Sometimes the card is actually hardwired soldered into the motherboard, so it's not a separate card. But a lot of times on servers and in other desktops, you can pull the network card right out. And you can do this with a lot of laptops too. If you break the network interface, you can open up your laptop, remove the module, right? So it's network interface card. Inside your server environment, you can go to local server and trigger a system update inside the virtual machine by clicking here where it says Windows Update. And it'll say, you'll get a chance to do something with this. And it'll come up. And one of the things that you should do when you're updating your system, you should go to the advanced options and make sure that these are turned on. Okay. All of these are turned on. Everybody with me?
Yeah.
So now I'm going to get a much better run of updates. In fact, it's saying there's a quality update. If I look here, it says optional quality update. Sometimes these are called feature updates. You would always want to load these. So this is like getting a whole new operating system. The kernel of the operating system is usually replaced when you're doing this. And this is not the same as a cumulative update. So here you see this KB 507316. The KB stands for knowledge base. If you take this and you copy it or you Google search KB 5017316, it'll tell you about this, and that's a good thing to do. I'm going to download and install the quality update as well, because that's a good thing to do. Now, another way to get to the Windows Update is to simply use the Start menu in your Windows environment, and then go to the Settings option, and then go to as soon as this comes up, well, it's not going to come up, it's already open. Went to Settings and then went to Update, and so this this screen is already open in Settings. Any questions about the two different ways you can access updates? There is a third way in Control Panel. You may or may not be familiar with Control Panel, but if you go to Control Panel typically looks like this for many people. But if you open up the category option and go to large icons, you'll notice you can usually get into System, and in older versions of Windows, Updates was actually down here in the lower part of Control Panel for older versions of Windows. So this is running, and that enhanced feature I clicked on is also loading. Now, one of the things I wanted to share with you is that your network settings can be particularly troublesome, especially when you're trying to run updates. If your updates aren't running, or it says, hey, you don't have any, and you know better because everybody else has had updates and your screen tells you differently, it could be the network that's the problem. You want to see whether or not your network is active. And if it is, can everybody see this right here?
Yes.
This is a virtual machine feature. So you have several layers of indicators that you can work with. In the same way that we went to the host environment first and ran updates in the host environment first, we should go here to our network to check to see if things are going well, because if my network and the host isn't connected, I'm not going to have a good result with my virtual machine. That's just your virtual machine can't do what the host doesn't have. So what you want to do is open this up and see if you're connected and if you have an IP address. Everybody can see this IP address? If my virtual machine is set up to work the network in a bridged mode, this machine and my server should be able to see each other. My laptop and my server should be able to talk to each other across the network if they're on the same network. That depends on whether or not the network card is set up properly. I can use the Virtualbox window to hold it over this to see what my adapter is and what status it is. And you see the words bridged adapter, and then you see the IP address here for 192.168.15. My address is .18 on the laptop. So I have a different address on the laptop. That means that as far as the virtual machine is concerned, my laptop is just another device or system on the same network the server is running on, and vice versa. My laptop can see the server. So I'd like to know whether or not these two can talk to each other. What's one simple way I can check to see if they can talk to each other?
The terminal.
Right, you can open up a command prompt, sometimes called the terminal. I'm going to type in CMD. And I can open up the command prompt and ping my laptop. So I'm going to use the word ping, and I'm going to put in that address, 192.168.1.18. Now, if I get a response back, that means my laptop is accepting packets from my server. Now, what happens if I go the other way? I might be able to see the other one. Ping 192.168.1.15. How come I'm not seeing my server back? My server virtual machine sees my laptop, but my laptop doesn't see my server virtual machine. Well, this is a server, and servers have a tendency to be a lot tighter with the firewall. Everybody knows what a firewall is?
Yeah.
So I'm going to go into my firewall, into advanced settings, and I'm going to allow for echo replies. It's called ICMP echo replies. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down and try to find, here's network discovery. Well, that's IPv6. So let's see, file and print sharing echo request. Does everybody see this? I'm gonna, ping is sometimes called echo or echo request. I'm gonna enable this rule. And so now I'm gonna repeat this command. Now you can see that I get a reply back from the server. Does everybody understand what I just did there? This is bridged mode. When I'm in bridged mode, I'm using my host network adapter to simply give me access to the outside network as if I were a separate physical machine. That's bridged mode. Any questions about bridged mode?
Can you explain a little more about bridge mode? Sorry.
No, don't apologize. And yes, I can explain more. That's a good question. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
So what we're saying is we want to use the laptop network card as a bridge for the server network card to get on connected, to get on the network and to get connected. Let's say that again. When we're in bridged adapter mode, we're saying we want the virtual machine to use the laptop network interface, the laptop adapter as a bridge onto the local network. So it's more like, okay, I'm going to pass through the laptop network card in order to get to the local network. That's what bridged mode is about. I'm using,
Okay, so using a laptop like a middle ground.
yes, I'm
All right.
using the laptop network interface as a bridge to get on the local network. So I can receive an IP address that's automatically assigned from my network, and my server can take care of business that way. Okay. Now, there are cases where you want to set what's called a static network address, and we'll talk about that next week. I'm going to close here because I want to spend some time talking about the other options in more detail, and we're at a point where we need to close. Is there anyone that has any questions about what we've explained so far, about bridged mode, about adjusting firewall rules so that you can verify network is working between the two? And then next week, we'll talk about how to adjust from there for better security for different situations. Okay. All right. Thanks for joining us today. That's all we'll cover today. And please keep your eyes out for the 2 assignments. It's basically a walkthrough of the same thing we've just been. And if you do it on your machine and take care of things and capture a screenshot and post those, you'll log credit. We'll finish explaining the rest of the network options, and then we'll get into shutdown and machine management options this time on Thursday, the 29th. Okay.
Can you post the recording?
Yes, I will
Okay.
post the recording.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks for joining us, and goodbye for now. Have a great weekend.
You do as well.
Yeah. Bye-bye.